I don't often say this anymore, and yeah, I know it's kind of cliche, but we're talking about a special kind of show that I haven't dealt with for some time. I mean, look at the title. Does the name Fleabag Monkey Face sound like it's going to be enjoyable? In any conceivable way. Yes, this is a show that I brought up a few reviews back about, a type of show that I don't like to review, but no, this show is something special. It needs to be seen to be believed. But trust me, you don't want to believe in this show. One of the only reasons that I'm even giving this show a look, because I need to check in on all the other candidates for my future top 10 worst animated series of the 2010s list. Yeah, believe it or not, a show like this came out in the 2010s, 2011 specifically. Fleabag Monkey Face is a show that aired on the British CITV network. Apparently, it was also based on a popular children's book series, and every one of those things sounded kinda foreboding of the show's quality. Like, I'm definitely not one to say that an idea is doomed to fail, obviously, but I can say that the stars were pretty much in alignment against Fleabag Monkey Face being any kind of quality. When it comes to children's cartoons, based on a children's book series tends to read off as a cash-in. And no, I'm not just talking about Wayside, there are also cartoons like the Never Ending Story cartoon, which I will get to. And let's just say that I haven't had the best experience with British cartoons, and Fleabag Monkey Face aired in 2011. That might be the most foreboding thing about the show. Not that coming out in 2011 is a bad thing in itself, but Fleabag Monkey Face is a gross-out kids cartoon that aired in 2011. Seriously, you're doing the Mega Babies bits when we had shows like Regular Show, Adventure Time, Friendship is Magic, Dan Versus. To say the least, this show appeared to be a bit of an anachronism. Actually, I think that's an understatement. This show not only waited for a trend to get popular, not only waited for a trend to get exceedingly bad, not only waited for everyone to get sick of the trend, but waited another decade before it finally decided to hop on the bandwagon. And this is probably one of the most major reasons that I've decided to review it. Gross out in kids' cartoons had been dead for years before this show. While other cartoons would certainly do episodes based on gross out, I can't think of a kid show that went with the straight up gross out angle, since debatably Flapjack. And when cartoons start doing things that we should have moved past by now, I get a little annoyed. A good point of comparison. The humor in the show is basically on the level of the animation in the Magic School Bus reboot, which I may or may not get to as its own reviews. In essence, things haven't been like this for a very, very long time, and the medium is better now that things don't look like this anymore. This isn't acceptable because we have moved on from this mistake. Speaking of animation, let's talk about the animation in Fleabag Monkey Face. You'll notice one thing in particular about this show that is different from most other gross-out cartoons. It's 3D animated. And that might be because making a gross-out show 3D is a bad idea. Bad idea is an understatement. Making the show 3D killed any chance it had to be any sort of good. Because here's the truly funny thing here. Like, the only funny thing about Fleabag Monkey Face. It's not very good at gross out. The things they try to make disgusting and gross do not look disgusting and gross, because it's in 3D. The snot and the slime you see in the show doesn't gross me out for the same reason that the slime in Super Mario Sunshine doesn't gross me out. It's too distant from any sort of reality. Gross out needs a specific kind of stylization to be effective, and on a television budget, it's really hard to stylize a 3D show. Like, the reason that Mega Babies, an adult party cartoon, and King Star King gross me out so much is because they were drawn in such a way that emphasized the disgust in every single frame. They went out of their way to make you feel the emotion that they wanted you to feel. And that's just not something you can achieve in 3D animation, you know, without a cinema budget. Something that this show clearly doesn't have. It's why they decided to make the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs cartoon 2D. The kind of fluid motions that the movies are known for would be very, very expensive to do on a television show in 3D, even though that had its own brands of mistakes. Seriously, the guy's nose looks like a cancerous tumor. How do you get character design that bad? This is Fleabag Monkey Face compared to the cover of the books. On the two-dimensional book covers, he looks relatively appealing, and has his own kind of charm. I get that they tried to make him look uglier in the cartoon, and that's kind of the point, but in the end, because the animation isn't technically good, it ends up looking like they just didn't know how to technically build a model. The two boys that made Fleabag Monkey Face constantly hold the same expression because they clearly don't have access to the budget to make 3D models expressive. Look at this giant ear monster destroy these buildings. All of the rubble is on the same fucking layer. None of it moves naturally, and you can tell almost immediately. It doesn't look good in any way whatsoever. If you want a good example to compare this to, you should actually look at Fanboy and Chum Chum, honestly. I hate that show. Like, I find it annoying to all hell and back. But I will admit, it does have some very good television 3D animation, and it knows how to animate in 3D. The characters all have interesting designs, and they really did figure out how to make 3D models emote. Yes, today we have a show so bad that I am complimenting Fanboy and Chum Chum, an adult party cartoon. Like, at least those shows knew what they wanted to do, and knew how to achieve what they wanted to do. Their problems came out because the end goal was the problem. Now, that leads us to a very important question. What's worse? The guy who lights your house on fire, or the guy who's too stupid to know how to light your house on fire no matter how hard he tries? Not that the show doesn't squick me out at all. It has some consistent animation problems. And, animation problems can be quite uncanny. And this show has one consistent animation problem that occurs throughout the entire running time of the entire series.
Are you fucking kidding me?
This character's name is Dirk, and his character design has such an issue that I am baffled that they ever let it get to air. I'm going to give you a second to try and come up with the problem of this character design. Actually, no, because his head looks like a fucking penis. I know that we all joke that the minions look like penises, and if you squint while you're looking at the head of Arnold's grandpa, that looks like a penis too. But no, like, if you wanted to make a penis in 3D because you're weird or demented, the villain's head in the show is exactly how you'd make that 3D penis look. There are really only two possibilities. Either they were so incompetent that they didn't realize the problems with this model after seeing it a million times, or they actually actively wanted one of their characters to be a walking penis on a show aimed at children. And if I had to make a guess, well, his name is Dirk. It's one letter off from Dick. He dresses up as a cock. And if that's not enough, look at the helicopter that he drives.
That's disturbing.
I know that it's common to put adult jokes in kids' cartoons. Animaniacs, Ren and Stimpy, SpongeBob. The examples are numerous. But there's no art or subtlety here. Like, speaking of which, putting adult humor in the show, what adult in his right mind would ever watch Fleabag Monkey Face? I decided to review Fleabag Monkey Face. I am clearly not in my right mind right now. Now, when picking a specific episode to review from this show, I have many options. And, well, Return of the Dung Zombies, where they battle zombies made of camel shit, is very tempting, as does an episode called War of the Noses. I think that I have to go with the first episode of the show, When Earwax Attacks, to give you the proper Fleabag Monkey Face introduction. After the intro, which gives us all the belching snot and strange yellow substances that you can want, we open up at an announcer declaring the 50th Annual Gross Out Award. And this is actually a perfect scene to show how bad the animation in this show is.
Hi, sweetie. Just letting you know that I'll be at HQ for a while yet, so if my new Chanel dress turns up while I'm out, be sure to put it somewhere real safe, okay? Kiss.
What dress?
This guy seems to be confused and is waving at something on the other side of the limo. Then we see Dick and his cock watching in on them. And here's one problem that I've noticed that is consistent with this show.
That gives me an idea! I'll unblock the functions on his precious telephone and throw in 500 text messages for free!
He says this after we've been shown that Fleabag Monkey Face is at the Gross Out Awards, and he himself is not. This happens constantly. After they show us something, they tend to immediately tell us what anyone with any modicum of intelligence would be able to figure out just by watching the damn show. It's show, don't tell, not show and tell.
That was meant for that wacko Louis Piccolin! I sent you a cute little message! Mwah, mwah!
Yeah, how cute.
Oh, and that's another thing. Fleabag Monkey Face has an awful voice. Like a fucking awful, awful, awful voice. Most of the voice acting in the show is tolerable, but Fleabag, oh my god. It hurts. It really does. As much as I complain about shows that assault my eyes, shows that assault my ears, I tend to find 10,000 times worse. Like, even after all of these years, I still remember how much trouble the Control Alt Delete gave me because the audio on that show was so incredibly, incredibly painful. And I want to say something outright. When I complain about bad voice acting, it's usually not the voice actor's fault. Believe it or not. A lot of the reason the voice acting turns out to be bad is because of bad direction. I could not stand the likes of Bubsy or Coconut Fred, but both of them were voiced by Rob Paulsen, who is a very talented voice actor by anyone's metric. And Harry Scary was voiced by John Stevenson, who had an impressive legacy of over 40 years of voice acting. I can imagine that they were given the direction to be as annoying as possible. Like, after SpongeBob hit the scene, that seemed to be a common tactic the directors wanted. And all of the talent in the world isn't going to save you from a bad voice or a bad performance if the director wants you to sound like Jar Jar Binks. And, well, I will give him this. He sounds more articulate than Jar Jar Binks, but he sounds almost exactly like an articulate Jar Jar Binks. Small problems, like every little second is filled with another little small problem, and absolutely nothing right. It's quite stellar, actually. Anyway, Dick talks to his boss. Oh my god! Like, I thought the Dick's design made me cringe, but if you're going to make one of the characters look like a penis, at the very least, like, at the very, very least, don't make a clone of that design look like a penis that was... Like, all I can think of looking at this poor unfortunate soul is ouch. He is not in pain, but his very existence makes me feel pain. I think we should get to ending this. Because the giant monster was stopped, Dick loses his job and gives a new TV show to Fleabag, Monkeyface, and his friends. Like, on the spot. It's another plot point that doesn't connect to anything else. And we end on a belch.
More, please, no more! Take it to the bridge with your funky stuff!
Oh, that's better.
No, Machi, that's art. Oh, boo.
And with that, my patience for this show is over. I don't know what to say. There is no excuse for this. There is no excuse for any of this. It's a kid's show. I don't care. It's a gross out show. I don't care. It's based on a children's book series. I don't care. None of this should be this fucking bad. There is no excuse you can muster that defends anything in this show. It is one of those true failures at every single level. There is not one thing that the show tries to do that succeeds. The animation, dated when it came out. The humor even fails at being immature. No two story points connect. The writing is not just awful. The writing itself is the worst. I'm not kidding. Newborn Cooties was at least coherent. You can have better writing by pulling random words out of a dictionary. This one is over. I'll see you in a couple of years when I do that top 10 worst of the 2010s list.